Bishop Kenneman, clergy, Ms. Broaddus, Mr. Knapstein, faculty and staff of St. Patrick Catholic High School, and of course, the graduating class of 2025. Thank you for gathering here today for this special occasion. When I think about my time at St. Patrick's, the first thing that comes to mind is an image of me on my first day of 7th grade. I know that probably seems a little strange, especially when I have so many rich memories that I could think of. I could think of how proud I was every morning of a Mass day to come to school dressed in such a fancy uniform. I could think about that one St. Patrick's Day where we got green pancakes for breakfast and had Irish tap dancers come to the school who gave us a performance that left marks on the gym floor that never got buffered out. I could think of some of my favorite classes, like Advanced Placement United States History with Mr. Kearns, where learning about my nation's history made me feel like I was a part of something way, way bigger than myself. Maybe I could even think of how much I enjoyed the campus ministry team this year, getting to know some really great classmates, some of which I found out would do quite a lot of crazy stuff just to get a donut. In short, I could probably write an entire book about all the experiences I've had at St. Patrick, and maybe I will someday. But for some reason, I am more intrigued with thinking about me at the start of 7th grade and what it would be like if I could have a conversation with myself from this time. At first, the allure of this idea for me was that talking to 7th grade Will would be like talking to a twin version of myself. After all, it seems like it was just last week that I was spending my days biking around town with my friends, excited but secretly nervous about starting the new phase of my life. However, as I started to play out an imaginary interaction with 7th grade Will in my head, I quickly found out that we have a hard time relating to each other. There are so many thoughts that I want to share with him regarding my life and where I am going, but he cannot understand where I am coming from. Slowly, I start to realize that this interaction is not really like talking into a mirror, but more like the typical older kid mentoring a younger kid scenario. I guess the only difference is that I am extremely invested here because some kind of self-preservation is at stake, and I want to communicate everything I know that will better him. But how can I communicate all of the experiences from these past 6 years that have shaped me into who I am today? Experiences like COVID-19, which led to the fever dream that we called 8th grade year, where we were allowed to come to school but with all kinds of intense precautions. This experience would force me to confront some questions that we're all going to face in life, pandemic or not, like, how long do I have to hold out for things to return to normal? Or is there really such a scenario where I would rather be at school than home on a computer all day? Experiences like theology with Mr. Creel, Miss Cloud, and Miss Drake, and Mr. Molino, who all have a strong relationship with Christ and shared with me their personal testimonies, which taught me that at the end of the day, everyone worships something. But those who worship God have a much greater sense of peace than those that worship things like money, status, or appearance. Recognizing this truth has made me all the more grateful that these people took the time to teach me about the church, even if some of them did make outrageous claims like, we will never have an American Pope. Experiences like cross-country and track, where I learned how to bond with people of all ages through wholesome activities and discovered that accomplishing a goal, no matter how modest, can still produce a beautiful moment. The truth is, it isn't possible for me to translate the impact of the events from these past 6 years to the 7th grader, mostly because I do not have the mental firepower to do so. Take it from someone who spent the last week reflecting on his past. Some of our memories are so complex and nuanced that trying to contemplate the full scope of their effect on our lives is really going to make our brains hurt. So all I can tell the 7th grader is that I really have no way of transforming him to be my equal, that he has to wait for the next 6 years to transpire in order for this to happen. All I can tell him is that he does not have to go through these experiences alone, and that he will have all kinds of people by his side, which I would like to acknowledge now. First, I would like to thank all my teachers, whether I had you at St. Patrick or St. Alphonsus, for shaping me into the student that I am today. While I would like to thank each one of you individually, my speech is already way too long as it is. Next, to my parents, thank you for being with me through both the highs and the lows. While I am grateful for every time that you have celebrated one of my accomplishments, a big part of being a parent is being there for your kids through all the bad stuff, like caring for them when they are sick or making a huge financial sacrifice for them. I know that you have done a bunch of stuff like me for that, so I'd like to say that I love y'all. To my siblings, Olivia, James, and Jack, I love and will miss you next year. I hope that your experience at St. Patrick will be as transformative as mine by the time you graduate. If I can offer you one piece of advice for high school, it would be to avoid daydreaming. I know that sometimes school is boring, but you would never want to miss out on anything important that your teachers have to say. Of course, nobody expects you to be perfect in this regard, so if you accidentally daydream every now and then, all will be forgiven. Unless, of course, you are daydreaming right now. They cannot forgive you for this. Lastly, to the class of 2025, you are good people. Thank you for sharing your high school experience with me. I know I spent a lot of time talking about myself in this speech, but since you were all really smart students about to graduate from high school, I know that to make it through English this long, you have read enough books to recognize that when a writer is talking about something, it is usually just a means to talk about subject matter that is way more abstract and meaningful. In this case, the thought experiment I have described for you guys, where I have a conversation with my past self, and we are like total strangers, is just a way for me to illustrate the metamorphosis we have all experienced in which our time at the school has transformed us into much more conscious and self-aware individuals. Of course, while your time here might not have affected you as deeply as it affected me, I think everyone can agree that we will all feel a little more confident about starting the next chapter of our lives as the people we are now, not the people we were when we first came to the school, and that this fact could be part of what we are celebrating here today. Still, we need to talk about one class memory, so I want us to reflect on one final moment from our senior retreat where we were all gathered in that big room so that we could share with each other our favorite moments from the past 24 hours. One of our classmates shared with us that his favorite moment was watching us play on the retreat, running around with joyous looks on our faces as if we were still little kids. If you were on this retreat, I'm sure that you found some level of truth to this statement. This got me thinking about 7th grade Will one last time. But this time I was thinking about our similarities, not our differences. I thought about all the hobbies that we both enjoy because they help us to express ourselves. I thought about all the people in my life from back then, and how 6 years later, I can still have positive interactions with these people, even if we are no longer close. I think about his academic drive and willingness to learn that we both share because it helps us connect with others. It is thinking about all these things and more that has led me to realize that for all of our differences, we are still made of the same essence. Above all else, we both want to love, be loved, and live out our lives joyously, and that this is something that we could have never learned. It is simply how we were made by God. This brings me to one final observation of my thought experiment that I want you all to take with you. Even if the past self is you as a baby, and the current self is you as an old person about to die, although me and my former self are completely different, we are one and the same. Thank you.